still awake. So in my 20s, I linked up with a group that at Manchester University in England that were studying this, and was able to carry out some of my own experiments to prove that I really could perceive events, people, locations at a distance and be fairly accurate. Out-of-body experience is basically perceiving another location external to where you are with something other than your known five senses.
It sounds like you're the perfect instrument to be not only doing remote viewing, but the other work that you're doing as well.
I think I found a happy place.
Now, you also trained at the Monroe Institute and got a background in the Gateway. Talk about that for a moment.
I had wanted to go to the Monroe Institute in Virginia for a long time. And then back in the early 1990s, I had that opportunity. They had some offers, which I couldn't refuse, for the Gateway program. So I went out and spent a week with a group of other explorers. And at the Institute, you go through a series of listening to different tones over headphones. And they have something called the binaural beat, where one tone's played to one ear, one tone to the other, and it creates a separate tone that allows you to enter different states of consciousness. And they have different phases, different stages of these. It was amazing because I was able to put names to consciousness states that I had been in before, as well as experiencing a lot of new ones.
Have you been back?
No, I want to.
Did you meet Robert Monroe?
No, he'd passed on by the time that I got there.
Wasn't he a fascinating guy?
Amazing man, yes. Very much a visionary.
I'll bet he's having a great time where he is.
Mm-hmm. Other people have claimed to have seen him and his wife still around there.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
He was so articulate and passionate and committed to exploration and discovery. The real, true exploration and discovery.
Right. Yep.
Talk a little bit about what prompted you to begin writing.
Oh, gosh. I've always wanted to write. I've always been a writer from a kid, writing poetry and short stories. In my 20s, I had some short stories published in local magazines in England. But it wasn't until I came to the States that I really felt that I wanted to write in more depth. So in the early 1990s, I decided I wanted to write about the OBE experience and remote viewing, and was very fortunate to get a book contract with Hampton Roads Publishing Company in Virginia, and wrote Remote Perceptions. And where I was able to document some of my own experiences, plus write about the remote viewing field and the new public awareness that was coming about in RV.
Do you think that RV will become, let's say in 10 years, more commonplace and people accept that time is not what we understand it to be?
Very slowly. All of the metaphysical abilities that people have, I mean, everybody has these abilities, but in the current mindset we have here in the States, they're very much ridiculed and relegated to fringe science. It's going to take a major paradigm shift, some shift in consciousness for it to change. So I think the next 10 years is still going to be a battle.
What about 25 years?
25, perhaps, yes. I think there's a possibility there.
Don't you think on some level that when people around the world and the consciousness changes about what time is and isn't, particularly what it isn't?
Yes, yeah.
When that happens, don't you think that there will be a synchronistic chain of events that will also click in about who we are and who we're not?
Right, I think so. Now with the new physics, with the more information and more interest in the quantum field, 0-point energy, Lynn McTaggart's work documenting all of these interesting topics. I think that's going to come to a point where more people are going to be educated in what time is and isn't. And it's going to have people thinking. But again, it's going to be a major paradigm shift. And I think people are going to be taken for a loop because they've become very established in what time is and don't even think about what it isn't.
A certain degree of human suffering is connected with what we're getting done by certain times. Don't you think that many more souls and beings would not suffer so much if our relationship with time would undergo some type of paradigm shift?
Right. I see this a lot. I've worked with seniors here in Boulder City. I was director of the senior center for a couple of years, and I found there is a great fear of death. A lot of people don't realize that this life is just part of the continuum that we carry on. And it's not always what people expect from what they're taught in church and school. And I think if the paradigm shifted, there would be less fear about death, about that it's not a full stop. It's not, you don't come to the end and then nothing. Or you're up in the clouds with lutes and lyres. So, yeah, I think so, because I know I have no fear of death. I know this is just going to be the next big adventure. And I hope I live till I'm an old lady, but there's no fear.
How does your shamanic work connect in with your work as a life coach, yourself as a remote viewer, your work with runes? What is your shamanic practitioner work exactly?
The shamanic practitioner work has added a whole new dimension to what I do. I've always been interested in alternative dimensions. As a kid, growing up in the Celtic parts of Britain, I was very aware of the traditions and the practices of pre-Christian civilizations. Always had a fascination with that. Reading the runes, getting involved with that tradition. And recently I've been training with Hank Wesselman and Jill Kuykendall, Vision Seekers, and it's opened up a whole new way of seeing the world and other worlds. For example, in remote viewing, I'd always stayed in this dimension, past, present, and future. With shamanic work, you have every other dimension open to you, it's wonderful.
What other dimensions do you mean?
With shamanic work, there are some shamans who work with the lower dimensions. With Hank Wesselman, we're talking about now the higher dimensions, our higher self, our spirit families, our guides. And I'd always felt I was on my own in my decision making. Now I can call on, if I have for example, I had a situation the other day. I was on the bus. A homeless person was haranguing the bus driver, and a young couple had got on the bus. And I thought there must be some way to help resolve this, even though I shouldn't have got involved. So I called on one of my spirit helpers, who is Bear Spirit. And I said, Bear Spirit, can you provide a way to help this man, this homeless man, resolve his problem and help the situation? And before I knew it, he was walking off the bus, and I had asked, for him to have help with providing him with somewhere to go, a place to eat, etc. So he was just off the bus very quietly. And so little things like that, the shaman works in healing work, interventions in the community, and basically tries to help their community.
That's fantastic. It would seem also like shamanic work is something that the shaman in oneself emerges and gets strengthened and then naturally facilitates that which they're called to facilitate around them. Am I correct?
I think the second one, where the shaman emerges and becomes stronger.
Okay.
Because I've always had that shamanic interest and leaning, but I really hadn't manifested it or worked with it at all until recently.
Talk a little bit about your recent books, Shire. Just give us a little background on what it's about, and River of Passion, the newer book.
Right. Those were fun to write. I first of all started off writing River of Passion, which was my last book, which is a historical novel It takes place in the village of Sharhampton.